What's up guys? In this new video series, we're going to be taking a look at machete fights from other countries around the world. The first country we're going to be taking a look at in this episode is the Philippines. First, I want to shout out the Philippines because in the early days of my channel, after the United States, most of my views came from the Philippines. So I've been getting a few comments about Filipino martial arts, mainly about Cali and Arnis. I must have seen dozens of videos of Filipino martial arts being taught with sticks, machetes, and knives. However, I've only seen one actual street fight in the Philippines using knives, and the fight was pretty short, so there's not too much to analyze. The stance and movement, the advancing and retreating, is similar to what you see in a lower tier Dominican knife fight. I have yet to see a machete or stick fight. If you know of any videos, please send the links to my Instagram account, Dominikhan_net. So for that reason, we're mainly going to have to use what's taught as Cali or Filipino martial arts as reference, versus what's actually used in real life situations in the Philippines. There are a lot of guys who teach Filipino martial arts, so I'm gonna use some videos with a lot of views or videos from channels with a good amount of subscribers. The first video we're going to look at is with Doug Marqueta and some of his pupils training with knives. The first thing I notice is this doesn't look anything like the real knife fight we saw earlier. This looks incredibly choreographed. Your opponent in real life will never be moving at quarter speed waiting for you to attack. In this next segment, they're very close to each other. Not that you can't or shouldn't close the distance in a knife fight, but again, when you compare this to what we saw earlier, there's a big difference. If you're going to close the distance in a knife fight, which is a very risky move, your objective should be to grab your opponent's weapon-wielding arm to take it out of the fight as you attempt to strike. Here, they're not going for a grapple or trying to grab the arm, but they're pushing the weapon-wielding hand away with their offhand. Will that work in a real-life situation? We can't say until we see it done. Personally, I wouldn't want to risk losing my fingers by putting my offhand so close to my opponent's blade. This does kind of look like they're playing patty cake.
And the whole point here is it real? Guys, none of this is real. This is training. This is enjoying the art form.
I do like how Doug is aware that this isn't real and it's only training. The next video we're going to be looking at is by the Voodoo Brothers channel. And in this video, these guys are using machetes, my favorite. When you look up machete fighting tutorials or how to fight with a machete, the main drills that are taught focus on striking, when what's even more important is movement in combination with striking. Striking in real machete fights, for the most part, is pretty simple. Swinging from right and left really is most of it. Of course, you should mix it up, but the emphasis should be on striking with movement, not just striking. I see this pretty often in Cali, both combatants standing stagnant and swinging their weapons at each other in a very choreographed manner. Another thing I see pretty often is unnecessary use of the offhand. If your offhand isn't holding a weapon or some type of shield, it should be away from where you're swinging. You see the guy on the right put his forearm behind his machete. You should never do that. In a real fight, your opponent isn't aiming for your machete so you guys can do a pretty dance. He's aiming for you to hurt you. Now we have another video from the Voodoo Brothers channel. This one is on sword training.
Watch. Parry. Watch. See you. Other side. Parry. Parry.
Okay, so already in the beginning of the video, he's telling the trainee to parry the sword with his hand. Don't ever do that. That's how you lose a hand. Keep your offhand away from the sword action. The trainee has a sword. Why would he not use it to parry? Even though this clearly isn't practical at all, at least they're having fun. We'll watch one more from the Voodoo Brothers channel, and this one will be about stick fighting. The good old Cali sticks. First thing I notice is the stance. They're very squared at the shoulders instead of standing more sideways, which makes them a larger target. I do like how he turned into the strike, but I don't like how his secondary stick is under his armpit. Your weapons should be in front of you and in between you and your opponent.
Done. The moment I apply my technique, I attack. See? Oh. See? 2, 3. Oh.
It's very unlikely you're going to land 2 or 3 strikes while your opponent is just leaving his arm out.
If you do the standard redonda, here we go. See? You leave yourself open. See that? You set yourself open. I'm correct?
Okay, so he said if you do the standard redonda, you leave yourself open. If it's a standard move that leaves you open, why would you use it at all? This looks like it's more for show than anything else. Unnecessarily complex striking with no emphasis on movement that you're not going to be able to use in a real fighting situation. I do like how he's got the strap on his hip. Okay, so I'm going to give my final opinion on Filipino martial arts. If you want to get a fun little exercise while using weapons, cool. I think it's great for that, but it's not practical at all. By practicing Filipino martial arts, will you fare better in a situation with melee weapons versus someone who hasn't trained with those weapons? Maybe. And I say maybe because if you're training to do something, in this case, handle yourself well in a violent altercation involving melee weapons, but if you're training incorrectly, that could have negative consequences in a real life situation. You're training to use these melee weapons, and then when you finally get into a situation where you have to use them, and then you come to the realization that you can't land 3 strikes while your opponent isn't moving, or you try to parry a blade with your offhand and end up losing some fingers. You're probably going to be more comfortable holding and handling the weapons, but that's only going to do so much for you if you're going to be doing unnecessary hand movements and leg raises. It might just not be a part of the modern Filipino culture to engage in weapon-wielding duels like it is in the DR, which is okay. Japanese samurai might have been the best swordsmen of all time, but they don't exist anymore. And Kendo is still taught. I put Kendo in the same category as Filipino martial arts. It's traditional. It's a fun activity taught for exercise and cultural expression. It's just not practical. Now, what makes a martial art practical? Real life use. Has what is being taught been applied in a real life situation? In Dominican Machete Fighting, we have a catalog of fights with some of the best fighters and some of the worst. What I did with Dominikhan Academy was take what I learned from the entire spectrum and broke it down into a science. Something no one else has ever done. The only self-defense course in the world that's truly based on real sword fights. I'll say it again in closing. If you guys know of any real Filipino fighting videos with melee weapons being used, send them to my Instagram account, and I'd be happy to make a part 2 of this. But I'm gonna end the video here. If you liked it, please hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. You guys asked for it, and after a year of working on it, it's finally here. The world's first Dominican Machete Fighting course. The only self-defense course in the world that's based on real sword fights. We cover everything from the basics to the advanced. Learn how to defend yourself with and from machetes. Learn the real martial art of Dominican Machete Fighting. Only with the Dominikhan Academy course, only available at Dominikhan.net. For this first month, the course will be half off. This sale ends October 9th, 2023. Get the Dominikhan Academy course now, only at Dominikhan.net.